Call to order, Gladstone Planning Commission. Today is November 21, 2017. The time is approximately 6:30. Call the roll.
Commissioner Preble?
Here.
Commissioner Natalie Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Malachi?
Here.
Commissioner Poole?
Here.
Commissioner Wentz?
Here.
Commissioner Pat Smith?
Here.
Chair Rowlett?
Here. Let's salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have additional correspondence or items?
We do. We have Jenny Lipscomb here that is gonna be addressing the commission regarding the downtown revitalization plan.
And when do you think we should put that in the agenda?
Now.
I believe now before you get started.
Okay.
Before the consent agenda?
I think before. Yeah, because she's gonna talk about,
that's a
I think we're good.
presentation.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Jenny Lipscomb, and I was hired by the City of Gladstone to manage the downtown revitalization project. Clay and I had a miscommunication about publication of notices, and so we didn't get the notice in for tonight's hearing, and I'd like to request a continuance till the next meeting that you have, which I believe is December 19th.
Okay, so what do we have to say or do to say it's continued?
You can, Clay Glasgow Planning Staff, you can do this one of two ways. You can open the public hearing. Now, I tried to see if there was going to be anybody here for this meeting, and there wasn't up until a few minutes ago. 3 other people showed up who I haven't talked to, so there may be people here for this. And that being the case, you would need to open the public hearing, offer to take testimony, then continue it. Otherwise, you could simply open the public hearing to continue it, or you could just continue it as a matter of course. The options are yours, but I think first we should find out if there's anybody here for this item.
Anybody here for the downtown revitalization specifically?
Then I'd suggest just continuing it as a matter of course, possibly do it by motion.
Okay, let's make a motion. Someone?
I make a motion we continue it until the next meeting,
Yeah, that would be December 19th.
December 19th.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. The motion passes, and we'll see you
Next month.
19th of December.
Right.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight, the agenda is going to start with the consent agenda, and all items, well, actually, there's only one thing on the consent agenda, and that's approval of the minutes. All items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a commission member or person in the audience requests specific items be removed from the consent agenda for discussion prior to the time the commission votes on the motion to adopt the consent agenda. And then the minutes, then we're going to have public comment about anything other than any of the hearings that are on the hearings tonight on the regular agenda, so we'll do that before we open the public hearing for Z0533-17-D, an office building on Clarendon. And the second public hearing is Z0582-17D, renovations to Tonkin Hyundai. And then at the end, we'll have a chance for the public to make any comments about anything they want. And then the Planning Commission will discuss and have business, and then we'll adjourn. So
on the consent agenda, I did have one thing. I think maybe it's more of a matter for the transcriber. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But on the end of it, it mentioned that the motion passed 5-1,
And I can't recall, did we decide we wanted it to be specified who voted which way and why on these agendas?
thought we
Because
had.
the city council, if they have to review it, won't have any reasoning behind our decisions.
Okay, so you're wanting that specified in there as to who voted?
I think we did decide that, didn't we?
I think we discussed that.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea to, everybody knows what everybody else had discussed and why they voted yes or no.
Yes, thank you, and I frankly was the no vote, and that should be noted. It should be there.
Okay, we'll make
Yeah,
sure and
thank
update
you.
that in the minutes, yes.
Thank you.
Anything else on the consent agenda? Approval of the minutes? Motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as modified.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, motion passes. If anybody wants to comment on anything other than the 2 items that are on the regular agenda tonight, we'd like for you to fill out a little card, just so we have a record of that. Is there anybody here that would like to comment on anything that's not on the regular planning agenda? Okay. So, I think it's time we should open the public hearing for the Clarendon. So my name is Randy Roulette. I'm the chair of the Gladstone Planning Commission, and I will be presiding over this hearing. This is the time and place set for the public hearing in the matter of planning file number Z0533-17D. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, and the Planning Commission looks at specific criteria during the public hearing. A quasi-judicial decision includes we apply regulations or criteria for permission for a property owner or their representative to do something with the owner's land that requires a land use approval. Examples could be conditional use permit, variance, design review, etc. The Planning Commission determines the accurate and missing facts and objectively apply them to the criteria. Values or interests have no place in the decision. The hearing body makes the final decision, and the decision can be appealed directly to the City Council. So the public hearing is the procedure we'd like to follow tonight. Planning Department report, applicant testimony, proponent testimony, opponent testimony, applicant rebuttal, decision to continue or close the hearing, and Planning Commission decision and discussion. Does any member wish to disqualify himself or herself for personal or financial interest in this matter before us tonight, or does any commission member wish to report any significant ex parte or pre-hearing contacts? Please indicate if you have visited the site in connection with this application. Let's just start down at the end and work our way to the other end.
I'm familiar with the site, but I did not directly go down and take a look at it. I'm pretty familiar with it, though.
I drove over by the site and looked, yes.
I had contact with both the chair and staff beforehand regarding the accuracy of the report, but I did not get a chance to visit the site.
And I did visit the site. I'm also familiar with it just generally because I probably walked by it 100 times or probably a lot more.
I'm also familiar, and I've been by it repeatedly, and Randy's probably been by it closer to 1,000. Yeah, thank you.
I did drive by it specifically to take a look at it.
I visited the site also in the pouring rain.
Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any commission member to hear this matter? Seeing none. Is any member of the audience who wishes to question the jurisdiction of this body to act on behalf of the City Council on this matter? Seeing none. Oregon land use laws require that all issues be raised if the issues are to be appealed. Failure to raise the issues at this hearing may invalidate their further appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA. Any party has a right to request a continuance to this hearing, or in the alternative, to have the record left open for 7 days. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the Commission to respond to the issue will preclude an action for damages in circuit court. If you're going to testify, please try to address the applicable criteria. Will the staff please present the report?
Evening, I'm Clay Glasgow. I work with Clackamas County and on contract provide planning services for Gladstone. The applicant for this has a presentation. I'm going to go on ahead and go over the staff report briefly, however. But first, I would like to point out a couple of errors in the staff report. You know, when I start one of these, what I do is I, just from memory, go to the last one I did most similar to it, to use as a template. It actually forces me to address all the criteria more than anything else. And sometimes, being, you know, a human type critter, I make mistakes. I'll admit it. I don't remember ever taking out too much, but occasionally I'll leave something in, just a cut and paste error from a previous staff report or decision, which I did in this case. So if we could just make a couple of changes here, and thank you for Commissioner Malachi for pointing them out, although one of them I think I'm okay on, but on page 3, under number 3, you're going to be wandering through here for quite a while. Bottom of the page, the property is very visible from Oatfield as well as being a gateway property into Gladstone. Most of the remainder of that paragraph is just, like I said, cut and paste left over from obviously something different, in this case at Arlington and McLaughlin, so I'd just like to remove that.
How much of that should be remaining?
All the way down to, well, starting from small o on, right after the 205 freeway, where it says on from his, I mean, it just doesn't even make any sense, proposed retail store, all the way through the retail store is located such a pedestrian access is enhanced. Just delete that entire segment because it doesn't apply to this. Then further down, we're on page 4 now. It says site lighting plan is as approved through the master plan and amended through this application. There is no master plan. Again, this is simply from a different one. So I think we should just remove everything, reworded to say site lighting plan is as submitted by applicant, because we do have a site lighting plan here, and the applicant's going to go through that. And I think that's it. I would like to make a change to one of the proposed conditions, just more for the heck of it than anything else. Under recommendation, condition number 1, this would be on page 9, that says this approval, with exception of map verification, shall remain valid for 1 year following the date of approval. We're not going to have a map verification here, so I'd suggest deleting that phrase, with exception of map verification. That'll just clean that condition up. Otherwise,
What number was that, Clay?
The first one.
I'm sorry, what?
Which number was that you were referring to?
That was under recommendation. It would be condition number 1.
We also want to add the before expiration on that clause.
Yep, thank you.
I think that was on the original one. Expiration.
All right, with that, let me briefly go over this. This is a, Chair Rowlett, just out of more curiosity than anything else, were you involved in the first approval on this site for this office building?
No, I was not.
Okay.
Actually, before you go on to that, I'd also like to make sure we point out, in case anybody downloaded the original one off the website,
Mhm.
The second update was posted on the website as well.
Good, okay.
Because there were missing pages in the first one.
Right, yeah, somebody, yeah.
Originally I'd asked for, well, I noticed that there's pages missing from the staff report, and so I emailed staff. And it was Friday, and I was starting to panic, and probably sent out way too many emails, and it just got things kind of more confusing. But anyway, Clay responded, and the staff report that we got back still had some problems with
The stuff you just pointed out.
the things that we just discussed. So, before we go too much farther, does everyone understand who can ask for a continuation of the public hearing and why? Does anybody want to know more about that? Anybody on the planning commission want anything? Okay, so there is grounds to continue the hearing, or you can just ask for a continuation for any reason. And if no one wants to do that, then let's proceed.
Okay, so the property is as described. There's no site address. It's sort of at the east end of Clarendon and Union, right there at 82nd Drive. It's in a commercial zone. It's also planned commercial. Property consists of several platted subdivision lots. It's approximately 0.44 acres in size. As far as area use, you've got commercial across 82nd to the east. There's also commercial immediately to the south of the property and further south. It's residential zoning and use to the west and north of the subject property. And as I mentioned, this had been subject of a similar proposal and approval many years ago. I think it was either 07 or 08. It was prior to my time with the city. It was approved at that time, and then due to larger economic factors, simply shelved. It's back now. This is very similar to what had originally been approved. We had a pre-application meeting with these folks, and in this staff report, you've got some comments from Jim Wynot, Public Works, that came out of that staff report, or excuse me, the pre-application meeting. The meeting was well attended. We had Pat Sissel there. We had Justin Poiser with Public Works. We had Jim Wynot. I was there, and we just had a good discussion. And it was determined that no further frontage improvements are going to be required for reasons that nobody could quite figure out, at least as of that meeting. Everything's built, it's done, the sidewalks are there, just surrounding this vacant lot, just very conveniently. There's reasons for that, but regardless, there's no additional frontage improvements required.
A quick interjection. I believe we also had an email response from Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Right, all right, coming right to that. Jeff Jolly, police chief, sent an email. This was regarding both of these. Police department has no LE concerns regarding the upcoming agenda. I am not sure what LE means.
Law enforcement.
Okay, then he has no particular concerns. So we got comments from both Public Works and the police chief this time. It's great. I went through, I listed the applicable ordinance criteria and then went through them one at a time. What you've got here is an office building, approximately 10,000 square feet, give or take, in size, 2-story. It's designed interior to accommodate up to 4 tenants. As I understand it, 2 of those tenants have been identified. Real estate office and construction company office. The other 2 tenants are still mysteries. There's 27 parking places identified, including 6 on street. And in Gladstone, in the C3 zone, you can count on-street parking if you can identify it as being physically available. In this case, it can. And up to 25% of your required parking can be on street. And that's kind of what they're shooting for here. They're slightly over, and I'll let them explain that. Frontage improvements existing. Curb and sidewalk all the way around Clarendon, Union. There's no storm system available in the streets fronting the site. I'm going to let the developer detail this, but they propose to manage stormwater through a series of ponds and swales on site. Sanitary sewer and water are existing and able to be hooked into. Then I went through each of the applicable The approval criteria, these deal with everything from site design to building elevations to compatibility with other commercial uses in the area. Site lighting is dealt with. Specific building designs dealt with, including there's windows, you've got the solar access ordinance. And I can go through these one at a time if Chair Rowlett would like me to. Otherwise, I'm going to be brief because I know the applicant's got a nifty little presentation that's going to show this better than I can say.
Commissioners, do you want more detail on that?
I can just read right through this if you'd like.
Anyone? Let's do the brief.
Okay.
We've read it.
All right. And moving through here, the applicant in your packets, you got cut sheet size. They're not full, but cut sheet size. You've got that color sheet right there of building materials and in colors. That'll be looked at on the screen here in a minute. This meets the criteria to use high-image exterior building materials and finishes. We want to take a look and see what they're going to have up on the roof because I'm curious, and if so, it'll need to be screened, but we can talk about that in a minute when they start showing us pictures. As far as trash and recycling, that's dealt with as shown on the site plan. There's also building elevation information regarding the trash and recycling enclosure. With regards to non-residential construction, the Gladstone Code has some specific building standards and includes that ground floor windows shall be required on walls fronting a public street. The windows shall cover at least 50% of the length and 25% of the wall area. And it's the bottom of the required window, no less than 4 feet above, no lower than 4 feet above the adjacent exterior finish grade. The intent is to make it open and so you can look in and see what's happening in the building. Landscaping, C3 zone requires 15% minimum site landscape. This is a tight little site to jam all this on. The only way they're able to do it is the fact that they're putting 6 of the parking spaces out on the street. But they're showing 15%. They also need that landscaping area to deal with stormwater, and I'll let them talk about that. Let's see. Minimum parking requirement based on square footage of building is 27. This shows 27, including 6 on the street. All the parking will be located on the property or on the street surrounding the property, as in all in the C3 zone, which is required. Bicycle parking is as proposed and shown. We got traffic separation, sidewalks on-site and off-site. As I mentioned, there's no requirement from Public Works for any further street improvements, and the on-site sidewalk situation is as your code requires, so that's good. Don't really have any specific information on signage. I'm not sure the applicant does either, but we can talk to them about that. And I'd like to talk to them specifically at some point regarding site lighting, just to get that thrown out there and get some more detail. Jim, why not Public Works? Have I read this comment yet? I can't remember. I'm going to read it right now again. From Jim, why not Public Works? As discussed at pre-application meeting, water, need to upgrade existing main to 8-inch or loop the 6-inch main on Clarendon. Sanitary, connect to the existing main. Stormwater, need infiltration, water quality detention, and conveyance to acceptable downstream storm system. Regarding streets, all existing sidewalks, driveway approaches, and ramps shall be upgraded to meet current ADA standards, including access around power poles and guy wires at the intersection. I listed a variety of what are really quite standard conditions. And with that, I am open for questions.
Commissioners?
Clay, excuse me, I have a question, and I want to preface it by saying it may be a simple misunderstanding on my part of the language. But if I could get you to look at page 2 of this presentation, in the middle it talks about the storm system available in streets fronting the site, and developers going to manage the stormwater through their own system. And then when we go back to, I just had it here, we go back to page 7 at the very bottom, subsection 17.50.020 requires curbs, associated drainage, and sidewalks within the right-of-way or easement for public roads and streets. To me, those seem to be not in sync, but it could be simply a language thing.
Well, I
I
think,
don't get.
can you give me that first reference again, because I think yours is on a
Page
different...
2.
Yeah, I think it's on a different page on mine now. Can you tell me
Under
what...
summary 3,
Summary,
Roman
3,
numeral 3.
and which, first paragraph or second?
Second.
Frontage improvements including curb and sidewalk exist along both Clarendon and Union. There's no storm sewer. That condition, on page 8, that finding on page 8, is a typical finding. It's kind of a no harm, no foul in this case, but it's redundant, I would agree. So I would suggest simply rewording 17.50.020 sub 3, that second reference, to say that curbs, drainage, and sidewalks exist as per code, or something to that effect. I do need to make a finding there, just to show that it's met, because in the summary, that's more just discussion. But I agree. Is that reasonable?
Yeah,
just to, okay.
Very good. Thanks.
Was the fire department included in the pre-application meetings?
We actually do quite a few pre-apps now. We didn't used to do any. So let me see if anybody from the fire department was there. I don't recall, but let me look. See, we had all these people show up. Mike Funk was there, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Michael Funk. But as far as I know, I don't have any comments into the file from Mike. I will, and I'm not trying to speak for him, but paraphrasing what he said, he didn't have any particular concerns because he can get to this from 3 sides. And the access is good. And there's a hydrant. Actually, the applicant can point it out, but he was actually tickled pink with it, just because the access is so good on 3 sides.
I have a question on 17.5040, the streets and roads generally. It says right-of-way is adequate on Arlington Street, which that seems fine, and full improvements are in place or will be as a result of the master plan.
Yeah, and that's, thank you. We'll reword that.
Okay. Well, the master plan isn't...
No,
defined
that's
here.
from the Walgreens site.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something there. Thank you. That's the part.
Well, okay, then I have a question too. Under general information A, it says 7 on-street parking spots, but on page 2 and 6 it says 6 on-street parking spots. So is that just a mistake in how it was written?
That was how I interpreted 2 different parts of the application. I believe 7 is the correct number, but thank you for calling that out, because I think we need to figure that out and ask. I believe they're asking for 7, but I wasn't sure.
Because it says 6 on page 6, number 4, and 6 on page 2.
In the summary, that first paragraph. Yep. Yeah, let's clarify that. Questions?
Is the applicant or his or her representative present? Would you like to add anything to the staff report?
Not to the staff.
Would you like to make a presentation?
I would love to show you our project.
Okay. Just give your name and address for the record when you
At the mic.
come up.
Yeah, come on up, Dustin.
Dustin, are you going to be on the screen there?
Yes.
My name is Dustin Johnson. I'm the project architect with Cedar Architects, heading up this project. Our office is located at 15895 Southwest 72nd Avenue, Suite 200. I brought some hard copies to, just in case, I wasn't aware of what the electronic situation was going to be, or if we could actually present up here, but it sounds like that we can. I think To begin with, if we can pull open, there should be a file in there called drawing set with today's date. And if we can pull those up on the screen, then I don't have to pull out the 24 by 36 drawings. One quick clarification, the tenants on the second level that I know at this time, we've got a construction company by the name of Stone Creek Building, primarily residential contractor. And we also have a real estate company by the name of Suma Real Estate. And I've been informed that there is indeed going to be a medical office on the first level as well. And if we can scroll down to a sheet by the name of A0.1, that's our site plan, and I can address your question about on-street parking.
I'm sorry, which one are we looking for?
A0.1. Sorry, A0.2. Yes, please.
Bigger.
It is 6 stalls that we are requesting on street.
6, not 7?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Okay, the parking ratio for medical office is different than for office, professional office. It's more parking is required for medical. So that's just the thought.
How many more?
Well, it's calculation for a medical office, it's 1 space per 256 square feet of gross leasable area. For a regular office, it's per 370. So 1 per 370 compared to 1 to 256.
So how many is that going to put us back?
I don't have a calculator. And I don't know how many square feet of this is new to me, so I don't know how much is medical office.
If I can add to that, we've based our parking calculations on 2,500 square feet of medical office and 6,200 on general office.
How many, Bill? 10?
So
The medical shows about 10, 9.7, if you, at 256 square feet.
Right, I was just trying to draw that out of
Yeah.
Dustin, please.
Oh, sorry
Or
about
two
that.
numbers.
Yeah.
So we're good on the parking still?
Can you clarify, so those, the fourth resident for your facility falls into which category? Right, so the square footage that you've listed, is it not including that fourth facility for the parking in that calculation?
The parking calculation accounts for general office being in that fourth.
The fourth one is under
The fourth,
general, okay.
yeah. Were there any other questions regarding the site?
I'd like to know more about how you're going to manage the stormwater, the ponds,
Sure.
and I'd like to get a better idea of what that's going to look like.
So as Clay mentioned, this is an extremely tight site, and that's why we have so much parking on street. In order to deal with our stormwater situation on site, we need to infiltrate on site as well as to filter the water, deal with water quality on site. In order to do that, we had to hire a geotech to go out and do a geotechnical report, not just for soil bearing capacities, but also for water infiltration rates. And so the design that our civil engineer came up with is reflective of using the infiltration values determined by the geotechnical engineer.
I have questions about, it is a tight space, and when I went out there, I wasn't quite sure how you expect traffic to be coming in and out of it. If it's on Berkeley, then it's kind of at a place that's sort of, you know, has a light right there and then the four-way stop, and kind of would be difficult to make left turns. Otherwise, it's a really narrow street to go up to Dartmouth, and
It certainly is not, there's no curb cuts, obviously, right off of 82nd, which I think is the benefit of traffic on 82nd. And the parking demand that's being created by this office use, given the square footage, is light enough that, you know, traffic study, nothing of that nature was going to be required. So I don't anticipate much effect to the existing flow of traffic with this development.
With the construction company, they won't have trucks or equipment that they want to park out in the parking area. That's already a problem we have in another city parking area. I mean, the construction, I think there's trucks or equipment or stuff like that.
There will be, and there will need to be some staging areas on site as well, but outside of the areas that we propose to use for on-street parking, where I anticipate most of the construction vehicles being at, and then having actual stockpile areas of materials on site and off the street.
But then those trucks are still going to have to go down the streets that are really narrow and kind of residential. Did anyone else notice that?
Are you talking about during construction or the construction
company?
company?
The construction company. The construction company. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear about that at all. Once it's built, then the actual business having the traffic going all the time.
You know, it's really not going to be much different. They don't have any storage or anything on that frontage where people are going to be coming in and out throughout the day to be filling up their trucks with tools and equipment.
They won't be doing that at all there? Is that what you're saying?
No, there is going to be some traffic on there, but it's not. It's going to be typical pickup trucks, SUVs, cars. It's just a residential construction company. It wouldn't be much different than, you know, a general office.
They wouldn't have flatbed trucks that might carry lumber or stuff like that. They wouldn't have any larger trucks and SUVs or pickups, you're saying? I mean, is that what's anticipated?
They will have pickups and SUVs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the owner of the construction company.
Is that okay?
Just give your name and address for the record so we have that, please.
I'm Mark Beerwagon, owner of Stone Creek Building, also one of the contractor and one of the owners of the building. We're a residential construction company and we subcontract everything out. We've got two guys in trucks, but we don't have inventory. The people we operate out of an office building right now, a Class A office building.
Okay.
So we have accounting people and project managers and people that drive cars.
Okay, I understand. That's what I was worried about, were the bigger trucks and stuff like that.
We don't.
Office.
That's not our business model.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Clay, did we end up with a final number on the parking then, based on the medical being added to that?
Yeah, again, I was just wanting him to provide detail on why the proposed number is what it is.
So what was the final number from your standpoint with the...
It'd be 27, and that includes 2,500 square feet of medical office space, if I remember your calculation.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So the 27 is what's required?
It's higher than it normally would be because of a quarter of the building being used for medical office.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just a quick note on that. At the time that we did the parking calculations, we didn't have anyone on the first level, although we knew that there was potential. You know, we were seeking out a medical-oriented office for that space, for a portion of that space. But it was still speculative. So we estimated approximately half of that space is what we could park at, what we needed to park per code for medical office, with the rest of the building being general office.
Any other other questions?
Did we ever get any detail on the on-site detention? Was that question answered for you, how the stormwater is going to be handled?
I think there's another thing on the lighting, if you wanted to talk about, you had some questions on the lighting, I think, Clay.
I was just looking for some detail and to put it on the record, site lighting.
Sure. Sorry.
Yeah, so go ahead on the stormwater ponds and the lighting.
Sure. So the stormwater ponds, it's going to be on a C sheet if we can scroll up.
No, that's lighting. That's lighting.
Which way am I going?
C 3.0 towards the top.
The right one?
You are. Is it possible to zoom in at all?
Bigger.
Move over for me.
You got to use the bottom tape. Just pull it right.
Well, it's not letting me go.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
okay. And even bigger than that?
Yeah. That's better.
Can everyone see that okay?
Have to let me know where you want.
Can I get up and speak at the TV?
Speak loudly or take the mic with you. It looks like it'll go a little bit.
I think I can speak loud.
Okay.
Let me know if you can't hear me, but there's 3 primary infiltration ponds. Here,
I see two.
and it's through these ponds that water is collected. We slope the pavement to enter these ponds and infiltrate through those ponds. It's the process of infiltration through the soil that acts as our quality control, water quality. Nothing is going off-site. Everything's handled on-site. And again,
On the drawing here, I only see the 2 ponds. Where's the third one at?
The big curved one, I think.
Oh, right up front?
yeah, it's a big L-shaped pond right here.
Okay.
So can you talk a little bit about how those ponds will look, when someone walks up to them or a child falls into it or things like that?
As far as safety goes, they are designed at slopes and at depths that would be safe to somebody just walking across them. During times like this where we've had a lot of rain over the last few days, they will fill up with a bit of water. In this case, not more than 18 inches to 2 feet of water. But again, the slopes of these are designed such that they're generally deemed not to be dangerous to even walk on the side of the slope, at a slope that you're not going to slip and fall due to the severeness of the slope. We've done a landscape plan by a qualified landscape architect who has designed the landscaping for these swells to make them look professional, like it's just part of the landscaping. I don't think that you would be able to look at these and tell that they're actually stormwater swells unless, like I said, times that we've had past few days where it's just rained continuously.
I think you answered my question, but this is a common practice now, this type of swale. I mean,
it is, and more and more these stormwater codes are getting to be such that, especially in the city of Portland, it's considered best management practice, right? If you can deal with your own stormwater runoff that you're creating with your development on site. Historically, people have been able to deal with it with dry wells, but then there's a problem with that because your dry wells go so deep and you're worried about actually impacting the aquifer beneath those dry wells. So these shallow infiltration systems are very common and are becoming more and more best management practice.
Within the county, this is required. The bumps, we call them, best management practices, and daylighting is, and of course you're going to do it in your landscape area, and just from an environmental, well, it keeps water out of the system's pipes, for one thing. The pipes are already full. Daylighting it and having it soak in like this filters the water, replenishes groundwater. It's good for the rivers. It's just good in about a million ways to do it this way. And they're constructed in such a way that, yes, when it rains really hard, they're going to get water in them. But they're also constructed in such a way with the gentle slopes that anybody walking into that is going to be able to walk out of it. It just isn't considered a safety issue. There's no liability problem here. These have been tested. There's millions of them.
Good. Can we go ahead and talk about the signage?
You know, at this time I don't have any details regarding signage. It's not part of our design review proposal. That would be handled as a deferred permit item.
Coming back before us, or how would you go? What would be the plan?
I think that's maybe a question for Clay.
Yeah, typically it wouldn't come before you unless they're asking for oversized signage,
Okay.
and then it would have to. Otherwise, they just meet the code or they don't.
Okay.
It's an over-the-counter kind of
So in
thing.
terms of whether it's lit or not, things like that, you guys will be taking care of that? Okay.
On the lighting design that you have,
Can you go back to that?
you have, there's not a lot of specifics.
Page?
SL 1.0.
So Clay, you had some questions about the...
Well, it's actually a really good lighting plan, and I just wanted to call it out again, bring it out into the open. This is better detail than we normally get. Your code requires that there be no spillover, no light pollution, as it were, from one property to the next. Obviously, you can't keep glow, but as far as direct light, your code requires that it be contained on the site. This is it right here. And this is, I presume, a lumen contour map?
Yes.
Go ahead, Dustin, you know these better than me.
Sure, and I just want to start off by saying that this light fixture that's proposed on here is a pretty old light fixture, and we actually worked today to find a replacement fixture for it. But the light levels that it produces and the patterns it produces, even though it's an LED versus this fluorescent, is very similar to what you're seeing here. By looking at that light contour map, it does look like there's a lot of light spill off just because every contour looks the same. Those contours that are furthest out is 0.01 foot candles. That is 1/100th of the level of lighting required to light the surface of the floor in a building for egress purposes. To give you an idea, it would be almost like theater lighting. Up to 5 foot candles directly beneath the 20-foot pole light.
And it's just the one pole light?
It's just the one pole light, and really the light levels that we're talking about here are more for security than anything else. There's no other reason to have this light on this site than for the security of the building patrons getting out to their cars at night.
Well, so will the lights be facing down? Because one of the other places, the lights go that way, so... But these lights will all be directed down, so the people in the apartments won't be seeing a bright light, or the people in the houses.
Right, and
they'll see the glow from it going down.
Right, and this is another trend that we see moving more and more in that direction, where we provide cutoffs so that you can't see the light source from adjacent property lines, and that's the case with this as well.
Okay.
Yeah, this has been a big issue, a growing concern. LED is great for efficiency, but it can be offensive. It's not that gentle pattern. And I've seen locations where they met the code, but you're driving by, or just the way things are, there's some bleed off and affects your visibility when you're going down the street. And
absolutely.
So the one thing I see here is that you've gone out of your way to contain it, and hopefully we see more of that. I'm just real concerned about some of the lighting, and maybe it's because I'm over 40.
Is there any on-building lighting? You got any downward-facing things by a door or anything like that?
Can Can we go ahead and look at the color elevations, and I can point them out on there?
Which one is that?
It's going to be a separate file in that folder. 4 individual files.
Which one you're looking for?
We're going to look at the west, as well as the
This is west.
south elevation. It's a little bit hard to see. The colors are coming in pretty dark, but above the main entrance doors, there would be a light fixture, as is required for building code. Same with the egress door at the far right-hand side of that west elevation. And then there's one more exterior door that's on the south side of the building that would also receive a similar overhead light, but again with cutoffs. The main purpose of these lights is to light that area directly in front of the egress door, so you know where you're stepping out onto.
So again, they'd be facing down as opposed to out like that.
Absolutely, and that's a particular concern on the south side, where we're only just north of 3 feet away from the property line. So it will have cutoffs, and you will not be able to see the source of the light from the property line.
Okay, good.
Anything else?
I'm still, Dustin, it looks like it's, is it 30 feet to the top of the parapet, to the longest flat part of the roof there? Is that what I'm reading correctly? 30 feet ground to top?
It's about 33 feet 6 inches to the top of that entry there. And then on the corner of the building that faces out towards 82nd, it's up to 38 feet.
Okay.
Questions of the applicant?
I have one, actually maybe two-part, and you know, you are in a commercially zoned area legitimately, but you share it with residential. Parking on the street is going to be maybe somewhere down the road, not initially, it will become a problem. People are fairly territorial in Gladstone about the property in front of their homes. They think it's for their own use, even though it's legal. They don't get to own it, but I can see parking becoming an issue with some of the neighbors. That's just a statement. I don't know if there's anything that can be done about it. The other question I had is about privacy for the apartment building that adjoins you. I'm not sure about the windows in your building on the back side that face the apartment, but is there anything being done for your joint privacy? You from the apartment dwellers and they from you.
That's a great question. Can we pull up sheet L 1.0, which is our landscape plan?
South elevation is what? No.
L 1.0, it's part of that drawing package. We have, I believe it's 30 feet of landscaping between the building and the residence. We're directly in front of the building.
Grow up high?
Yeah, it'll grow up nice and high. And in the parking lot, that gets down to 5 or 7 feet, but again, it's designed with privacy in mind.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Is there a south elevation included in this of the buildings? Just so we can see the
yes,
windows.
there's also a colored south elevation that we can pull up.
There it is.
So this is the side of the building that's within 4 feet of a property line. I should probably quickly mention a lot of the buildings in this area, it appears that they got their design palette inspiration from the Gladstone Park Conference Center, and we tried not to disrupt that. So this is very much in line with what you see at the coffee house across the street, the subway building, and again the conference center, both in materials and in color.
Questions?
I think I have one other, and then I'll be quiet, I promise,
No, you
Chairman,
don't
the
have
rest
to.
of the meeting. Section 17.44.0208, at the bottom, it says, prior to the construction of your refuse center, that the contract hauler needs to submit a letter of approval. Has that been done?
It has not been done to date. It was done back in 2008, but it needs to be completed for this, yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I go back to parking concerns, and could you know off the top of your head, how wide are your parking spaces? I know they meet the code, but, and how many are gonna be handicapped? I'm a little vague about that, especially with medical in there.
Sure. So we meet the minimum code requirement for ADA stalls, and we have 2 stalls. And we could have up to 49 stalls while maintaining just 2 ADA stalls. So looking at it from that standpoint, we're sitting pretty comfortably at 50% capacity. The stalls themselves, we've got standard and compact.
Just a mix, that's where I'm going, is...
Okay. We've got 16 standard stalls at 9.5 feet by 18 feet.
Okay.
And 10 compact stalls at 8.5 feet by 16 feet. And then our 2 ADA stalls, which are also standard stall size, so 9.5 by 18.
Were you done with that question?
Could we see that?
So I have a question, and maybe Clay, you can help address this. Regarding 174424, regarding the windows. It seems to me that it says that they must cover at least 50% of the length. But looking at that, it doesn't seem like it does.
Not on the south elevation, no. Not on that elevation, no.
Is that the requirement, is over half the length?
On street-facing elevations, yes. This is on the south, and frankly, in this particular instance on the south, you want as few windows as possible.
Where the apartments are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got plenty of windows across the frontages, the street frontages.
Clay, I think you had said something about you were curious what materials they were going to use for the roof.
No, but we may as well throw it out there.
Yeah, it looks like it's a standing seam metal roof.
We have a partial standing seam metal roof at both of the angled roofs that you see on that elevation there.
Okay.
The majority of the roof is a flat roof, and that's what you don't see beyond the parapets there. And that flat roof will be a bitumen or a modified bitumen built-up roof system.
I do have one quick question, and this is probably more for Clay. On page 6, subsection 1746 is 020, number 4, talks about requires landscaping to be continuously maintained. How is that standard? How do you maintain that standard? How are the criteria for that?
That's just a condition out of your code. How it's actually administered is via complaint. So let's say something gets approved, we get a car lot along McLaughlin, just because several come to mind, and they're approved with particular landscaping. Years down the line, it turns out that landscaping is either not in good shape or being used for something else. Then it simply goes through the
Well, I was just more curious on how it relates to this particular process before it's built. And him fulfilling that criteria.
Well, it can't until it's actually in the ground.
That's what I'm wondering.
Right, and then it needs to be continuously maintained from that point on, unless you change it somehow through request.
And I'll add to that as an office practice, we generally go with as maintenance-free landscaping as we can while making it look good. So landscaping that our clients and building occupants don't have to spend a lot of money on in the future. the particular landscaping we have on this project is, much of it is xeriscaping, so it relies on no additional water than what it receives naturally, including what's in the infiltration basins. So it will, by design, always look nice and green, but how do you enforce people trimming it, and that becomes a city issue.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Anybody? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now is the time for public testimony. Please approach the podium, state your name and address. We will first hear testimony from proponents, that is, from people who support the application. Then we will hear testimony from opponents. And then we'd also like, is anybody here going to testify?
I just had a few questions.
Okay, could you, do you want a card, Tammy, or?
I'll get it after he speaks.
Okay. Just go ahead and, we're pretty informal and nice, and we just need your name and...
Sure, my name is Gary Kirk, and I have the property that you were talking about right behind it, the eightplex, right behind the construction site. I was concerned about the lighting. I still don't totally get it. I know there's cutoffs and stuff, but is there going to be much of a, will there be much light going back, you know, at nighttime into the apartments?
Well, part of the conditions include no spillover of lighting.
Sure.
So I would think that it shouldn't be
Okay.
a big issue for you.
Okay. I just wanted
to
to
further that, I mean, I think they're going to have their best intentions.
Yeah, I do too.
But if they're non-compliant with that, it becomes a code enforcement issue.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And that's true not just with this property, just in general.
Sure, I just wanted to kind of be on record on that, so. Also, I was kind of curious how long the construction would take.
Question.
I think we'll have them answer those questions when you're done.
Okay, what else did I have? The landscaping on the south side, what type of landscaping? I heard the word tall being mentioned, and I like that, but what does tall mean? Is that tall shrubs like our provider, or is it trees, or what is it?
So when the applicant responds during rebuttal, if they make notes, then they can address those things
Sure.
in rebuttal.
Sure. I'd like to say it's a beautiful looking building. It'd probably be really good for the neighborhood. So I guess that's it.
Can I ask a quick question? Over here.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
As far as topography goes, your sixplex is a little lower than this, am I right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay, is it like 20 feet lower, 2 feet lower? What do you, I just don't have a sense.
I would say it's probably 2 feet lower.
Okay.
On the south side there, yeah.
Right, so I'm just thinking from the hooding the light standpoint, the cutoff, but the applicant can rebut that.
Yeah, but I was a little bit worried about the drainage, if there could be any moisture problems or anything, so.
So they're, the windows they have on this, are these windows facing your property then?
This is the south side?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, they are. This is facing my building.
So, what would these windows be facing on your building? What is it facing on your building? What part of your building is it facing?
That would be facing the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in the back there of the building, it's a single building, isn't it?
No, it's a two-story.
Right, but it's one building, 2 stories tall.
Yes.
And so you've got maybe bedroom windows back there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of bedroom windows back there.
That's my concern.
Okay. I've had one more question here. If this is approved, approximately when would it start? That would be my last question, I think.
Yeah, and the applicant will answer that question in a rebuttal.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else would like to testify in favor of the proposal? Now, opponents, anybody opposed to the application would like to testify? Seeing none, now is the time for applicant rebuttal. Does the applicant have any further comments?
Certainly appreciate the questions and respect the concern of the adjacent property owner who spoke. Regarding the landscaping, primarily in the parking lot, the code is more sensitive about a screening of parking lot than it is of building from adjacent residential uses. So in the parking lot, we have a total of 8 broad parking lot trees, shade trees. Only one of those is interior to the parking lot. The rest are along the border. In addition to that, knee-high shrubs and also ground covers. And then as you step away from the parking lot towards the building, that 20-foot buffer that we have that's fully landscaped, that's mostly grass and shrubs. Regarding when this project is anticipated to start, we're ready to submit for building permit as soon as if we receive approval from this board and following any comments to get the conditions of approval issued. And we think that the construction itself is going to be in the neighborhood of 8 to 12 months. And we would more like to see the 8 months than the 12 months and are motivated to see it up.
Did you hear that okay?
Yeah, I did. I do have one more question. The property line, is that the fence line? Is the fence the property line?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think the last question was regarding site lighting, and I'm very familiar going through an exercise right now with the city of Seaside that has probably the strictest lighting concerns along Highway 101 and standards that have to be met. We have every intention of designing the site lighting so, and not only can you not see the source of the light from the adjacent property at eye level, but that you wouldn't be able to see that source. I know the building sits down a little bit lower, 5 or 6 feet. It's not significant. But if we need, we'll revisit the light pole itself and see if 20 feet does make the most sense, or if dropping it down to a 15-foot to further reduce the risk of any light exposure. And we'll look at it in section 2 from, an average person of 5.5 feet. Well, that's me. Average person of 6 feet at the property line, and make sure that that's not going to even remotely be an issue.
Yeah, I think in terms of lighting, the 2 main concerns are going to be adjacent property and people on in their vehicles or on their bikes.
Absolutely.
Right? So those would be the primary concerns.
Absolutely. And that brings up a great point. The highway sits quite a bit lower than the site, and that's something that we'll pay special consideration to. The light that we have selected to replace the one that's in here does come with a nice deep cutoff shield. It's not the one that comes with the light. You have to order it from another company, but it's one that we're using at Seaside, and it's for that exact reason. You can see the light from the highway. So we'll make sure that with the use of this shield, if we need it, that we can install that and prevent that issue from happening here.
Just so there's no illusions of thinking they're going to have 10-foot tall trees, roughly, what's the highest shrub and or tree going to be once it's planted for regarding landscape? I know they have potential to grow, but I just want it on the record of...
These, as you mentioned, 10 feet, maybe 12 feet.
Okay.
These are trees that are designed to provide low-level screening as well as shading. So these trees by design are going to be fairly low, but also grow outwards as opposed to upwards.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no further testimony, I'll entertain a motion to either close the public hearing or continue to a date certain. What is the pleasure of the commission?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing for file Z0533-17-D.
Favor?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Thanks, Les. Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion passes. What is the pleasure of the commission?
I like a lot of what I see here. I'd still like some clarity on the parking. From the citizen standpoint, I think we're giving away 6 parking spots. Not that that's necessarily legally what we're doing, but I struggle with some of the things I hear about parking on projects in general, and I wasn't trying to nitpick by asking, how many spaces are we going to have? What's our reality here? So, the up to 15%, is that correct, of the parking can be on street?
25%.
Up to 25. And this is how much? Just to clarify.
It's a hair less, it's a little bit less than 25. It's 6 out of 27.
Right.
Would most of that be on Clarendon going up towards the circle?
Or on Union.
Or on
Yes,
Union?
but
Clarendon's, I noticed there weren't any cars parked out there anyway, going up towards the circle.
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is I was really concerned about it at first, but 6 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, might not be that big of an impact. As long as there aren't the trucks going in for the construction company, that's...
They're not asking for a variance.
Right.
They're within the criteria.
Not going to have a storage yard.
Yeah, I don't think it should be that bad either. And it is within it.
Yeah, I'm just doing the math in my head and working it through.
You don't have any other questions?
No, they've all been answered.
Meeting's closed anyway.
Well,
Anything
for
else?
putting
Meeting been closed?
there's nothing, it doesn't seem like there's much conditional that's come up.
Clay, you made a note of all the things we needed to change on the conditions.
Mhm.
We had a couple of changes.
Mhm.
They're pretty minor.
Yep. Let me find them. I'm definitely going to play up the site lighting. The need that it be properly hooded, no off-site glow. Although I'd like to point out again that we got some very good detail for a change. This is what your code asks for. So we got it this time. Change number 1. What other changes? Just so I know for certain what you want, because we discussed a lot here.
There was a couple of things that I think we changed the wording on. I can't remember what they all were.
We made some changes to recommendation 1, which you already have that.
Got that. I'm making changes, paraphrasing yours, to number 5, just to really bring that home. That has to do with the dark sky requirements of the lighting. And that it be adjusted if necessary.
6 instead of 7 in a couple of places on the parking. Was that in conditions?
No, that's actually scattered throughout findings,
Okay.
but yeah, there were 3 incorrect.
Okay.
They're all 6s now.
Since the signage was not included as part of the application, it might be worth at least putting a note in there that it has to comply with the appropriate section when they do.
Condition number 11, I don't know if you saw that, it's a standard condition.
Oh, I didn't
Is that
see
good
that.
enough?
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, because there just wasn't anything to work with here, really. Yeah, and I think the rest of them were in the findings area, not in the conditions.
The only one I can think of is under recommendation, this approval, you said with exception of, I can't read it, something verification to take it out.
Right, that's number one, I've got that one, that's
Okay.
gone, believe me.
I believe you added in something about an expiration.
Yeah, he has that as well.
Okay, good.
You know, just as a side note here, I had a couple of the geeks from upstairs, the people who actually know this, the architects, they think this is a very neat little building. It's not only, you know, standalone neat, but with its immediate environment, it really fits, considering what you could have got there. This is a nice, it's just going to fit in nicely, and this really is the first thing you're going to see when you come up the freeway coming into town there. So instead of that grassy lot, you're going to have something that's, you know, to me, just an opinion, just very welcoming.
I know that your previous application expired, so I'm just going to point out to you that we are adding a clause in here that any extension would have to be done before it expires. So just so you know that.
Any other discussion? If not, would someone like to make a motion?
I can make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve file Z0533-17-D with conditions as specified with Clay.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Preble?
Yes.
Commissioner Natalie Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Malachi?
Yes.
Commissioner Poole?
Yes.
Commissioner Wentz?
Yes.
Commissioner Pat Smith?
Yes.
Chair Rowlett?
Yes. Pass. Congratulations. Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Okay. We're going to take like a 2-minute recess.
When was it? What
point?
Hey, we're
Okay,
ready.
that's gotta be somewhere figured out, because I see what you're saying, that could be a problem.
Public hearing is now open for the purpose of considering application Z 0582-17-D renovations to Tonkin Hyundai. The procedure we will follow tonight is the planning department report, applicant testimony, proponent testimony, opponent testimony, applicant rebuttal, decision to continue or close the hearing, planning commission discussion and decision. Does any member wish to disqualify himself or herself for any personal or financial interest in this matter before us tonight? Or does any commission member wish to report any significant ex parte or pre-hearing contacts? Please indicate if you visit the site in connection with this application. We'll start down on Mr. Preble and Commissioner Preble and work our way up.
I've driven past the site, not physically been on it.
I've been by the site previously, but not for this.
I've driven by it thousands of times, and I was over there today and drove the parking lot and looked at the buildings and the general layout.
Yeah, I also visited the site.
I drove by it specifically today to look over it, but I did not pull over and walk it.
I visited the site today, drove the parking lot, and checked out the buildings.
And does any, I should ask, always ask this, does any commissioner have any bias that could preclude them from hearing this application? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any commission member to hear this matter? Is there any member of the audience who wishes to question the jurisdiction of this body to act on behalf of the City Council in this matter? I see none. Oregon land use laws require that all issues be raised if the issues are to be appealed. Failure to raise the issues at this hearing may invalidate further appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA. Any party has a right to request a continuance to this hearing, or in the alternative, to have the record, excuse me, left open for 7 days. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the Commission to respond to the issue will preclude an action for damages in circuit court. If you're going to testify, please try to address the applicable criteria. Will the staff please present the report?
Hello, Clay Glasgow, planning staff here. This is an application by Access Design Group. We have a Kozak in the house, and we have somebody else, and I think they're going to be giving us a presentation here in a little bit. I'll be brief. This is for one of the car lots out along McLaughlin. Happens to be Tonkin Hyundai. I even drive one. I have a Sonata. I'm sorry about that. This property, excuse me, it's 19300 McLaughlin Boulevard. It's been a car lot under different names for a very long time. You may recognize the site as being on the other side of the wetland. That was the subject of a previous application, of which you will be reviewing again, by the way. That one hasn't run its course. But this one is on the west side of that same wetland. C3 zone, general commercial. Commercial comprehensive plan designation. The property size is about a little over 3 acres, 3.2 acres. This stretch of McLaughlin is, as everyone knows, commercial, oftentimes in the form of automobile sales lots such as the subject. This proposal involves construction of a new showroom and service reception drive. Is going to be about 3,000 square feet of additional footprint to the main showroom and service building. New accessible entrance is proposed with an accessible path to parking area and existing right-of-way. New display area fronting McLaughlin and will consist of scored concrete. Existing light fixtures and poles will be replaced. No changes planned to landscaping. And like I say, the applicant's going to give us a nice presentation on this, so I'm going to be brief. Being in the C3 zone, we have here is a use that's allowed outright. Any change to that use or new use requires design review. That's what we're here for tonight, is to put this process through design review. I listed the applicable code criteria that apply. It would appear I did a little bit better with this staff report as far as cutting, pasting, and otherwise getting the right property. And I went through the standards. Again, everything's already there. They're simply resorting, rearranging, adding small area to the footprint. The use itself is there. It's in place. So going through these findings, frankly, felt a little funny and redundant sometimes because most of them are already met and will continue to be met as noted in there. I went through all the findings, made positive findings against them all, recommended approval with a variety of conditions. I would like to point out or make one addition to the recommended conditions, and that would be that the applicant, prior to issuance of building permit, applicant submit for a construction management plan. And that construction management plan deals with what is a, if you promise to give me this back, I'm gonna pass this down the line here. I've only got the one, but what that is that identifies that big blob, the Olson wetland. It also identifies a Title 13 habitat. That's that red finger that extends onto the property in that area that's wooded. It is approximately 100, the wooded area, and the actual mapped habitat's approximately 135 feet away from the building, and most of that 135 feet is paved and covered with cars for sale. The buffer is easily met, but the fact that it is mapped on the property, I think we should still get a construction management plan out of them, which basically requires they put up a silt fence when they're building, so it doesn't interfere with the function of the Title 13. The Title 3 wetland is well off-site. The buffer does get close to the southeast corner, however, so I made mention of it in the staff report, but there's no need to add conditions regarding that in this case because it is well outside any part of that. That was the only addition I wanted to make. Otherwise, this one is very straightforward. It's a car lot that's being rebranded, and it's just making some minor site changes.
So I've got 3 things for you. One, on condition number 1, or recommendation number 1, we need to add the before expiration.
And this is just so folks know, I'm trying to get this into a permanent template, and this to avoid any confusion. If this is approved, you're going to need to implement this prior to the 12-month expiration date, and that's the intent of that, just to make it clear that you've got to get started on this. In that case, this means getting building permits and keeping them alive.
Yeah, and the main thing we're trying to avoid is we had an applicant come back many months after it expired and they thought that they could just renew it. And we don't want that. That's not the intention. So if there's going to be an extension, we just want it to happen before it expires. Second thing is, on your property report page, the map that we see there, I just wanted to comment that it's very hard to, it looks like you did some drawing on it, but it's actually really hard to make out. I don't know if there's anything we can do to improve those in the future, but...
Is it this one? Or which one are you looking at?
County website one.
You know, if you don't mind, and thank you for bringing this up, I can do a lot better, but it will cost the city, I mean, as often as we do these, you know, probably another $2 a month or something. But yes, I can give you a full page and much cleaner, clearer color photo.
It's just that this one, I couldn't really make out what you were trying to show, or even where the property was.
Well, it's useless. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
So the other thing, regarding number 10 and 11, the habitat stuff, we just went through some training that told us that the habitat zones were supposed to be guidelines to determine when to do delineation reports, and that we should be requesting them if there's a possibility of the habitats or wetlands being near the property. Based on your findings, it seems like that's the case.
And, you know, this is a matter of implementation. Title 13 is from, well, both Title 3 and Title 13, they're chapters from Metro's functional plan. Title 13 is nature and neighborhoods. Title 3 is the clean water section. But they both come out of Metro's plan. Title 3 is much more clear, the wetland, as far as when you need to consider it. And basically it's if there's a wetland within, you know, any distance, not any distance, but on any adjacent property, it does need to be further identified. Title 13 is much fuzzier and much more subject to interpretation, because one of the options for a developer is to accept the map as is. And in this case, accepting it as is takes it completely out of the loop. And in reality, you've got 130 feet of pavement between, and it's being used for autos display. In this case, if the applicant accepts the map as it is, boom, that's it, you're done. I was trying to suggest a construction management plan just to get something, because of gravity will take water and anything else that way. And the way your code is written, I think that's the way it needs to be interpreted. The county, I think, can be interpreted a little bit more gnarly and say, okay, you got this Title 13 wetland anywhere on your property. You need to do a map verification. We don't have the option to accept the existing mapped boundary that your code does. And that's a discussion that I hope the Planning Commission has, just so we can get some clarity.
I brought it up because we just went through 2 weeks of training.
Oh, okay.
Specifically brought that up.
Okay, and that's, who was the training with? Was it directed by Metro?
Who was that?
John Morgan.
John Morgan.
Okay, well they know what they're doing. Yeah. Right. And if you look at through jurisdictions, and this is through everybody within the Portland metro area deals with Metro's functional plan, you're going to see some subtle differences, particularly when you get to the cities. The counties are much more consistent. The cities are much more individual. And Gladstone took the model ordinance, the simple one, which says, okay, I accept the map as it is, boom, you're done. And that's only for Title 13. Title 3 is different, and they have the buffers drawn on there. And if you're anywhere in the buffer, you need to have a delineation done. Did I get to any of that?
So I guess I'm still unclear then. Do we are we requesting one?
Again, if the applicant accepts the map as it is, and also in reality, I think it would be silly, just because it is so far from the mapped boundary and that distance is covered with pavement. They're not going to get any closer than 130 feet to the mapped boundary, and nearly all of that distance is asphalt.
What is this map? We down here in the back 40 didn't quite
Which
understand what this is.
Okay, I'm going to bring you. This is slightly blown up. What this shows here, let me get these the same direction. Where's the Gladstone? This is the property. Okay, this is the Olson wetland. You may recognize this because this was the property we looked at. This is the mapped boundary of the Olson wetland. It's hatched, kind of hard to see. This red line is the buffer area around the Olson wetland, which does need to be considered. You can see it's off that. It's also off this one. However, this finger here is called Title 13 habitat. And that, in this case, follows what's basically a grove of trees that's also associated with water because it helps feed that wetland. This is a blow-up. So this is habitat. This isn't wetland, but it is Title 13 habitat. I did a little measurement here to show how far it is from the area of construction and what's between the build. This is all asphalt. It's not prime habitat for anything other than I don't know what. That's all this map is for. I just wanted to recognize the fact that that is there, that is a significant resource. That if they accept this map the way it is, your ordinance really ties your hands as far as what we can require. But I think we should require a construction management plan anyway, just to protect that. But if any work they're doing up here drains
up here.
Yeah, it's clear up here. And if any work they're doing up here, if they're sending mud down that way, they're shooting themselves in the foot by. So so I'm sure they're going to take care of it, but just the condition wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Can I keep this?
Yeah, sure.
Can you pass that down this way too, please?
Well, the Gladstone website has that.
Right.
And it's really neat. I got that from the county, but your website has it online. Yeah, eventually it'll get back.
He said I could have it.
I'll take
Really?
a picture.
Yeah, he did.
You can't have that.
I'll take a
Well,
picture
unless
and
Libby
email
wants
it
it.
to her.
That's public record.
Honestly, it's
That has to be kept by
A
the.
picture of the tree.
It has to be notarized.
Concrete right here.
Regular notary.
Well, is it open for us to ask questions at this point?
Clay.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Clay.
Are you done, Clay?
We have one more question.
We have questions, several.
The trees here, is there concrete on the trees, or is this this dirt, or, how far, where does this concrete end here, do you know?
I don't know exactly, and I haven't been back in there. The canopy probably extends further than the trunks, but in this case, I doubt more than 30 feet.
Some of this is probably already developed, maybe.
Yeah, but just a small portion of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions for Clay?
Clay, is there anything, I see about the lighting, I understand that. Is there anything about sound coming off from places? Specifically because it is because I know driving down Highway 99 East, I hear stuff coming out, so I can only imagine that people on the other side of 99E are hearing stuff coming out too. Is that addressed somewhere, and can it be a part of any of this?
It isn't addressed in Title 17. You do have a noise ordinance, the city does. It's administered through the police department. The C3 zone protects commercial uses and typical commercial noises. And that includes, that is broadcast for miles.
Very good.
Yeah, that would be a protected sound. If, on the other hand, there was something unusual going on, you could potentially do it. But no, these places. Who was one of the Johnsons, the blonde Johnson, lives
Kevin Johnson?
Yeah, lives by a car lot, and that was his beef when he was here. Yeah, because it was the car lot that he lived by. They were always calling for salesmen or somebody to come to the service department, and it is loud, but that's a typical noise. It's kind of like a drive-through. Those can be really loud at 2 in the morning.
I think they do less of that now. Because I have property
so,
that's
too.
near the highway, and it used to be you hear that all day long.
Yeah.
And now it's more. I think they have those silent cell phones and
Just
different.
pagers or phones, or it's
Well, that's good,
doable.
because I used to live in the Fairway Village,
Mhm.
and we could hear it,
Yeah.
kind of a street and so over.
Right.
so.
I mean, unless it's something very unusual, I don't think it would be worth even trying to pursue, but it would be through the police department,
Okay.
the noise ordinances.
So Clay, when you looked at that site, did you notice where the loading and vehicle unloading area was there? I couldn't figure it out.
And that's something to ask the applicant. There's circulation on site, and whether or not it can accommodate that size of a truck trailer combo is worth asking. We all know how it happens.
The code says that they have to have it off
Right,
site.
right,
Or
right.
on site.
Right, and that's worth bringing up.
Occasional trips down 99 indicate that they often unload in the center lane.
One wouldn't have to agree with that, yes.
Not necessarily these guys, but lots up and down
Mhm.
do that.
Yeah, even if there is room on site, these people driving the trucks would rather do that. It's much simpler.
So with this, we have to keep this. Tammy has to have this when we're done.
All right.
No, that's fine. I'll just make another copy. That's fine, I can make another copy.
You work it out with her.
It's fine, yeah.
You did your due diligence, okay, Randy? Thank you.
Keeping it.
Any more questions for staff?
No, I don't have any.
I think
Oh, actually, one more. So you have not received any comments from anybody but Jeff, is that correct?
Thank you for asking. Jeff did. It was just that one that he gave me for law enforcement issues, none, but I did not get anything from anyone else, no.
Okay.
And they were all at this had a pre-app meeting as well,
No,
right?
this did not have a pre-app meeting. It did not seem to rise to that level to me, simply because it was a remodel of an existing use.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for staff? Is the applicant or his or her representative present? Would you like to add to the staff report? Do you have anything to present?
We do.
Okay.
We would like to see it.
All right. Name and address for the record, please.
Great. You want to go first?
Sure. Kendra Kozak with Access Design Group,
Address.
11104 Southeast Stark Street in Portland.
Okay, and Tim Brenner with Access Design Group, Principal Architect, 11104 Southeast Stark Street, Portland, Oregon, 97216. Sorry to talk so fast. Good thing it's recorded, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think we're going to pull up. Do you want to guide her to...
Yeah, if you could pull up in the jump drive you have there, there should be a file. It's an image file. It says View Existing. So this is just a snapshot of the existing building.
So we just wanted you to see, if you haven't been by there, or it sounds like most of you have been, but this is the existing facility as it sits now. It has had various brands over the years. The site has changed, and this is the final home for Hyundai. And obviously the building is ready to be improved. It's past time, probably. The next, what's the other slide?
Yeah, if you could open the other view, it's the view proposed.
So this is what we're going to be doing to the building, and what the final design will look like. And if you recall in that previous, sorry, Patrick, you have to move again. In that previous photo, the building it sits back a little bit from the property line. It has a showroom and some office area, kind of a wood-framed old building, and we're basically going to tear the entire front of the building down up to the service part of the building, which is an existing concrete block building, and then reconstruct a new showroom onto the front of the building, bringing the building out closer to the street to have a better presence to the street, a more pedestrian-friendly kind of environment in the front. It's going to have, it'll sit up slightly from the roadway, and the roadway there slopes on a hill, so you can see it kind of varies across the front. There's a little plaza area there in front, and we're going to create some nice little plantings and things that create a nice sense of entry to the site. Let's see, shall we go to the other 3D view? Is that the only one? Okay, let's go to the site plan then. I want to explain where that is.
Yeah, in the file, it would be the second PDF.
Should I carry this with me? Is that how we're doing that?
It'd probably work better if you did.
So you can record better and stuff?
Yeah. And it's got some,
it's got room.
if you go around the front of the table.
You can probably
pick the whole thing up.
Yeah.
I feel like a rock star.
Yeah.
That's about as far as you'll get with that.
This is a good view right here that shows that wetland that you guys were talking about earlier, which is back here. This is our property, so you can see how part of it does come across that corner. Go to this drawing here. Let's see if that's the right one. Click on this 102A. Okay, this is the existing site, the way the existing site is laid out. So there's the main building in the front. This hatched area is a piece that's going to come off that I talked about earlier. There's also an existing building in the back that's used for service, which is to remain. And this site shows where the edge of asphalt is, the current edge of asphalt, and then it kind of drains away towards that wetland area. Then maybe go down to the next slide.
Before you
Oh,
switch,
sure. Yeah.
So when you're demolishing this area, to Clay's earlier comment,
Yep.
What is the plan to keep any of that debris from going down that towards that area?
Sure. For one thing, it is a long ways away, and this property was going to maintain business during construction.
Okay.
So it's really going to be important that we keep the construction area right here. We don't want to move out beyond that. It is a long ways away. Also, the way the site drains, it kind of drains kind of this way. So we're not going to get debris draining towards this back part of the site. It kind of moves this way across the site, if that makes sense. And it sounds like we're going to be doing a construction management plan. So that'll help as well with silt fencing that we'll probably have to do back there. Is that good? Let's scroll down, please, let's try this next plan right here. So this is the proposed site plan. So it shows where the new building is for the showroom. It shows also an addition on the north side here for a new service drive, and that's becoming more and more common on auto dealerships where you, oh, there you go. Where you, when you pull up to have your car serviced, you go inside the building, so that whole function happens inside the building. It's nicer for the customer to be in there, and then they can move into the building into waiting areas. So we have a small addition of about 1,575 square feet up here, and then we've got the building here is about 5,760 square feet. If you minus out what we're demolishing, the net increase in area is a little over 3,000 square feet to the building. We are creating a new entryway to get into the building and that landscaping around this new part. We're also, the code requires site treatment to be handled for site drainage. And so what we're doing here is we are going to be upgrading and putting in a kind of a filter similar to the application before this, where we'll be filtering the water before it goes into the catch basins. We're doing that one up here, and then we're doing another one actually back here to help treat this area of the water, and this will treat this area of the water. Okay. We can go down to the elevations, so they're going to be down a little ways farther. Let's try this bottom one. I think it's the last one. This is a view from this one right here is a view what you'd see from McLaughlin Boulevard. The building materials is, of course, a lot of glass. There's a metal panel system that has this really interesting kind of a woven look to it, and the material itself almost looks like a leather. It's a dark brown, dark bronze color. Real high quality product. It does have stucco in areas, and it's kind of a light gray color. And then we're going to be constructing the building back here. It's currently shown as a block building, but it'll be painted that same gray color. The existing shop building, which is what this is, will be also repainted and cleaned up. I think we're going to be putting a new roof on it, those sorts of things, and it'll be also that light gray color.
Can I ask you to back up one slide, please?
Oh, which one?
Is that the one in the back of the property? The bottom?
No, this is the part of the attached, that building.
The back side of it?
Yeah, we're going to want to paint that one as well. It'll all kind of tie in, so it all looks nice and... Yes, sir.
One slide where
you showed
the stormwater drainage.
Let's go up to this one. I think 102. Is it that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll work.
You show a catch basin in the lower right-hand corner close to the wetland. Is
right
there
here.
Any protection needed between that and the wetland itself?
Yeah, this is actually an existing, there's already a catch basin there. And so what we're actually doing is we're going to be regrading around that and creating a swale to capture the water and treat it before it goes into that catch basin. So we're not, it's not a new, it's a new facility, but around an existing catch basin, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So in other words, you're going to upgrade it with better grading, etc.
Yeah, and creating treatment for the water before it goes into the system. Mm-hmm. Another thing that has been talked about is lighting. The site, if you went by, we went by it tonight, a matter of fact, and it is so dark, you don't even know they're in business. And the site will be upgraded with lighting, and it's going to have the appropriate, we included, I believe, a photometric plan if you want to see that. I think it's also in that document that you have seen there with those drawings, but with all the appropriate cutoffs and shields and stuff so that the light is contained on the site, and also so if you're there are residences and around this, and so when they look down on it, because they're much higher, you're not going to see light shining up at you. So
yeah, I think for you, the
hooded.
big part is going to be McLaughlin, right?
I'm sorry?
I think for you, the big part is going to be McLaughlin, right?
For?
Making sure the light's not spilling over onto the highway.
Yeah.
And making sure that the lights aren't blinding people who are driving down the highway.
Yep. Yep, that's why they have all the appropriate shields. We've got to cut off that light really sharply at the property line. It's funny because street lights don't need to, but our lights do. And so our lights will have those appropriate cutoffs, and that's reflected on the foot candle lighting plan that we included. That's all I have.
Staff have any other questions, or commissioners rather?
I do not.
When you looked at the site plan, there's like a easement or a road that runs towards the east and then again north.
Towards the wetland?
Yeah, there's like an easement right there where there's no road, but there's supposed to be. And is that in that wetland area? Do you know that? Have you been out there and looked at that at all?
Yeah, take this back over here. You're talking about, I think, this right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, because right here is where the Airstream property is,
Yes.
kind of just below, and then there's this. It looked like it's actually called Paper Street, is the name of the street. We learned.
Street.
But it's not a street. It's really part of the wetlands and part of the. I think the idea is that was probably platted originally to continue the grid through, and it never happened. So there is. I know that part of that, especially when you get down here, is part of that wetland area.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the right-of-way for that is not included in your site plans. You're showing from the property line north, which the right-of-way is to the south of that line.
It is south, yeah. It's not on our property.
Right.
Who owns that easement?
The public.
You do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
Any other
it's actually a right-of-way, not an easement, for whatever that's worth.
Questions from the commission for the applicant? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now is time for public testimony. Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. We will first hear testimony from proponents. Seeing none, we will then hear testimony from opponents. Any opponents? And since there's no testimony, there shouldn't be any need for rebuttal.
I think they still have the opportunity for them to add.
You can add anything that's applicable at this point if you'd like. Any additions or other testimony? If there's no further testimony, I'll entertain a motion to either close the public hearing or continue to a date certain. What is the pleasure of the commission?
I make a motion that we close the,
Public hearing.
public hearing.
A second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. The hearing's closed. What is the pleasure of the commission?
Is there any discussion? No more discussion by anybody?
You can discuss.
Whoever asked the question about that, the detention facility, thank you for asking that. I was going to point it out. So whoever asked it, thank you, because that's an improvement. Right now it's just a grate. The water goes straight out of that huge parking area into the wetland. Now it's going to be treated. So
Good.
Do we need to add any criteria regarding the staff, since we have no response from them?
I'm not sure I understand the question. but
Fire or public works?
they'll just be standard conditions that they be satisfied.
Okay.
Commissioners?
Just as far as language goes, we all agree on it. I don't think it's an issue, but making it very clear about the construction management, how you're going to do it. I know what it's like. I did material handling, trying to work on this place, contain everything, and then take care of customers, and I know you're going to get there. But we've had some bad experiences in the past, so that's really important. And because there's so much concern over wetlands and stormwater drainage in the current environment, I don't need to tell you again that you walk within 10 feet of the wetland and people are going to wonder what you're doing back there. So, not to make a joke out of that, but the sensitivity there is high, and it's just really important that we and the citizens all know it's going to be clean when you're done. We're not going to run into, you can run into issues with signage, you can run into a variety of things, but this is one of those things that there's no wiggle room on. So, as long as that's properly addressed and worded, I think that's real important.
I think that's something that
Yeah,
probably
it looks good.
what you say
Yeah.
should probably have been done at the part prior to this.
Right.
Because
Correct.
what
We're
our
actually
feelings are about
rebutting.
anything has got nothing to do with our decision. And that's the phase we're in now, is making a decision.
Well, the building permit itself, regardless of that wetland and habitat, that requires all sorts of corralling of
Right.
runoff and whatnot, but let me know if this wording works for you. This will be condition number 8. Prior to issuance of building permits, construction management plan to be approved. Just boom. And that's a CMP that specifically relates to Title 13. I'll call that Title 13.
So that's what I'm also concerned that we make sure that if there's any issue with that wetland area, that we're able to invoke something that says, you know, if somehow the boundaries aren't what we think they are, that we have a way to get them to do that inventory or delineation, whatever it might be. So that's my main concern at this point. And I don't know if what we have here is going to cover that. So you know what I'm trying to get to is that...
Yes, and I'm just trying to think how I can legally answer it, because I'm in a position to where I'm in an unusual position. How's that? I don't think I can answer that, but your concerns are noted, and I think you'll find shortly that they will be satisfied. Is that mysterious enough? I'm really sorry about that, and I probably was saying too much anyway.
This is just kind of weird, but why do we not have our legal representative here tonight?
Why do we not have what?
Legal representation here tonight.
I don't know.
It's my understanding that David was out of town, and that I believe we were told that we wouldn't need legal representation tonight.
Chair Arlette, I think I have the same concerns you do, in the sense that when we were dealing with the wetland issue, we had several different maps people were looking at and different boundary lines. And so it was not clear and finite.
Well, I don't recall the several different maps, and this is not something that David could help with anyway. It's specific. But you know, you've got the mapped resource in your comprehensive plan, and when we had the application to the east, which also impacted this, or was impacted by this wetland, we had a great deal of testimony come in. We had a lot of people suddenly becoming wetlands experts, and so there was some information being thrown about. There is a delineated wetland, recent delineation of that wetland. It simply hasn't been publicized yet.
Really? Okay. Can you think of any condition that we could put in this to cover
It doesn't
us?
apply to this one. Because the wetland and the boundary both are off-site.
Well, I think if I remember at one time, there was some issues with the property line on that particular property where they had gone over the property line with pavement or something. And I don't recall what the whole thing was, but I'm not sure that all of that pavement is within their...
Well, everything back in there is it's woods. It's forested back the entire southeast corner of the property.
And then there's woods. It's a real abrupt transition. It's like...
Right, and that map, the blob map that you've got there with the red blobs on it. Yeah, that's clearly outside the parking lot area. And if the parking lot is mapped as a wetland or a habitat, it is clearly wrongly mapped. And it's not in this case, so I think it's, yeah.
Well, I can look
If
at
you'd
it
like,
again, but I'm not sure
would you be more comfortable adding a condition regarding the off-site wetland?
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay, and how, do you have a
I have
feel
no
for how
idea
you want it worded?
I don't.
Get there.
I don't
Okay.
know how to get that. But I
Okay.
would like to put something in there that says something to the effect of, if there's new information that we did not know at the time that could possibly require some delineation, etc., that it be done
Okay.
prior to
Construction.
construction.
So the best information available currently shows that the wetland is off-site, as is the buffer. If information comes in the future that shows otherwise, and that shows that anywhere near that area of construction, it would be miraculous, and incorrect, because that has been paved for eons, but, so I'm not quite sure how to put that in there.
Well, that sounded like a good start.
Yeah, but I'm not
You could make a
sure I'm
statement
comfortable
saying
with
that, you know, we believe that, you know, that the site is in compliance with any wetland issues. but if
Okay, I like
some
that, I
new
like that, I like that.
information comes
I like that,
to
and that's
light.
legal. So why don't we put, to require DSL, verification that, this development will not impact the Olson wetlands. How's that?
Department of State lands.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
said
because that's
DSL.
who deals with, they're their mother when it comes to wetlands.
Right.
That's good.
I think that's really.
Yeah, and that's doable, sad but true, but we can enforce that.
Stranger things have happened.
And you also have the new depository that's gonna drain into the wetland, so even though you're not sharing the site with it, you're contributing to the neighboring wetlands.
They already are.
It is going in there.
Oh,
Unfiltered.
got it.
Actually, make it better.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So you think you have something, Clay, that'll work?
I think so. Okay. What I'm trying to do is satisfy your concerns, which are valid, and also not put too much of an onus on these folks here because it is off-site. So applicant to receive DSL approval for use, or in the alternative, statement of no impact from that agency. Because frankly, those are one of the two that we usually get.
Okay.
They just have a standard form letter, a standard form letter, no impact, and that, boom, that's done. Can you guys live with that?
Yep.
Okay, because they can ask for it, so, yeah.
The public hearing's closed.
Okay, sorry.
Any other discussion or questions? Discussion?
Okay, so we got the construction management plan, we've added the DSL language, so we've doubled on we got both the wetlands and the Title 13 habitat there, okay? That's good.
Wasn't there a comment about building loading and unloading area also?
Oh, good, that was right, that was a question. We may need to reopen things. Now remember this.
You know, I'm good with, it's in the... So,
Very clear.
I think that, everybody knows that loading and unloading is done on site. And that it's an enforcement issue that we need to do with our code enforcement officer. Are you guys good with that? Do you think that? Anything else you can think of? Anybody?
Yeah, as long as they have a reasonable circulation plan, so we don't run into problems in the future, and it looks like you've covered it.
So we can reopen the public hearing if you want. If anybody has any issues that they want to ask the applicant. Otherwise, if everybody is satisfied, then we can entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve application Z058217D for the for the remodel and improvements to the Tonkin Hyundai site.
With the recommendations.
Recommendations
Yeah.
or amended conditions.
Yeah, with the conditions that we've added.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded.
Question? I want to make sure I got this right. I'm adding to number 1 prior to expiration.
Yeah.
CMP, the construction, okay, that's it, got it.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Preble?
Yes.
Commissioner Natalie Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Malachi?
Yes.
Commissioner Poole?
Yes.
Commissioner Wentz?
Yes.
Commissioner Pat Smith?
Yes.
Chair Rowlett?
Yes. Approved. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Okay.
Any comment, public? Anybody want to testify about anything? You can talk about whatever you want. The is there
Yeah,
water
right.
dripping back
Perfect.
there? Is there water dripping?
No.
Do we have like a bucket or something to put under that thing?
You've got, there's no land use items per se scheduled next month, but you did forward the downtown revitalization plan, so
Yeah.
you've got that, and I'll keep it clear of anything else.
When will we publicly know what the results are of the delineation?
You said somebody made, well, there was
I can't
mention
say.
that there was a
I literally
delineation
cannot say.
plan.
The fact that I said what I did is probably gonna get me in trouble, so.
Okay. Never mind.
Well, I can only guess, so I'm not gonna comment on it. So, business from the commission.
Thanks, Kendra.
I have nothing.
Good to see you.
I don't have anything either.
Really?
Me?
Sure feel like I should, but I
Oh,
You have something?
I think I mentioned it to you in an email. Curious as to, I know you were planning a meeting to start talking about working towards implementing some improvements for our training. And you had replied that was something you were going to discuss with Jackie. And
Yeah, I'm meeting with Jackie and Commissioner Milch, and then we're going to discuss a couple of things, training and ongoing training, and also a process, whichever way you want to pronounce it.
process.
For appointments to the Planning Commission and other boards and commissions. So, my feeling is that we should have kind of a standardized procedure to appoint, for the city council to appoint to the various commissions.
Speaking of that, actually, Carolyn said that she's looking for people to join the audit committee. Don't know if anybody is interested here or knows somebody who is, but she's asked for people to spread the word.
There's quite a few appointments coming up. There's a whole long list.
We have 2 that will be expiring.
And actually, I will go ahead and speak about that. The budget committee also has a couple appointments expiring, and I have already told the city I will not be renewing my budget committee position. I hope it's a second term, so I'm letting that one go. So hopefully somebody else will step up to take that budget committee seat. So.
Application deadlines are December 5th.
It's not very long, and I'm really concerned about getting any of these new processes started because we don't have time. So I did speak to Commissioner on the phone tonight about that, because it's something that, the city council appoints all of the commissions and boards. So, I'd be willing to help in any way I can, but I can't really spearhead that process to get that started or be ahead of it. Or we need the city council to do that.
Right.
And I'm really, for the time we have before those appointments need to be made, is like we just don't have time. So I don't know what we're going to do. honestly, but, I put it to one of the commissioners tonight on the phone.
Well, in planning and budget are special cases because they're mentioned in the charter, right? So, those have to be done by city council.
Yeah,
And they have some wiggle room in how they do it.
Actually, the library is mandated by state law, so there's already a procedure that they use, which I think they're going to continue to use that procedure. And I was hoping that we could have one for the, my main interest is the planning commission, but the rest of the boards and commissions would be able to have a similar one. It'd be nice, and citizen involvement and all that stuff along with that.
Yeah, just a general comment. When you drive by the old elections building, it's really coming around. You wouldn't have recognized.
Beautiful.
I sent a picture to the county and to just said, hey, do you guys recognize this? It's come a long ways, and we just need to see more of that.
Especially in our downtown core.
Yeah, they really, we had some complaints about that, and it's like, they got it done, and it looks great. And, that building before has looked the same since I can remember. And I went there with my grandma when it was a place where you got welfare food, peanut butter in a big green can that the Army didn't use anymore or something. So, it's been there. It's been a county-owned building for a long time, and under private ownership now, it really looks good. Good point.
They'll pay some taxes now.
Yes.
Oh, question. Do you know, or is there going to be a council meeting on the 28th, or is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I thought there was. I just didn't see an agenda yet or anything.
Packets and agenda will be completed tomorrow, so you should see it online here probably tomorrow. November 28th, correct.
Thanks. Good to go.
Do we have a date for training in January yet?
Is there a training scheduled in January?
Yes, there was something. Jackie had mentioned it.
I know Jackie's going to be discussing that, I believe, but I do not know that date.
I know we're going to discuss, upcoming training, but I don't think there's anything scheduled.
Okay.
So, what I recommend to every commissioner, and I do it all the time, is to read. We have 2 training manuals that we got recently, and I think those are both really valuable. Read through those. And I've also gone online and looked up, things from other jurisdictions in Oregon on planning, and everybody's different. And I think that, we have a good thing going here. We just need to refine some of this and tweak it. And I think we're going to have a really good planning commission. So that's my speech. You want to make one?
And we'll let commissioners know as soon as we've got something confirmed.
So if Bill doesn't have anything to add, I guess we're done. All right. Thank you.
Are you officially going to adjourn?
We're adjourned.